because everybody talks to you about it. And I remember a story you told on a show we did one time.
In 1942, Warner Brothers rushed to cut a scene from Casablanca just 48 hours before its premiere. The footage showed Rick Blaine at his most brutal, coldly trying to profit while a desperate man begged for his life to escape the Nazis. But this wasn't the only scene that disappeared. From dangerous cocktails to secret dealings, these are the forbidden moments from Casablanca that Hollywood buried for decades. The story of Casablanca starts in 1938 with a man named Murray Burnett, a schoolteacher from America. He and his wife went to Vienna to help their Jewish relatives get money out of Austria, which was under Nazi control. Later, they visited a small town in France, where they found a nightclub that left a big impression on Burnett. The club had a black pianist playing jazz for a mix of French people, Nazis, and refugees. That scene stuck with him. When Burnett got back to the U.S., he teamed up with a writer named Joan Allison. In the summer of 1940, they wrote a play called Everybody Comes to Rick's. The whole story took place in a cafe. Rick Blaine wasn't the mysterious man we know from the movie. Instead, he was a lawyer who had left his family behind. Ilsa, who was called Lois Meredith in the play, was very different too. She was bold and openly flirty, unlike the version of Ilsa in the movie. Even though the play had a strong anti-Nazi message, no one on Broadway wanted to produce it. One reason was that people worried it might seem like Lois had slept with Rick to get important letters of transit. The rejection turned out to be lucky because the play eventually ended up in the hands of Warner Brothers, setting the stage for what would become a legendary movie. In a strange twist of timing, the script for Everybody Comes to Rick's arrived at Warner Brothers the day after the attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941. Irene Diamond, a story editor at the studio, read it and thought it could make a great movie. She told producer Hal B. Wallace about it, calling it sophisticated hokum. Wallace saw the chance to make a film that would connect with the public, now deeply focused on the war. Warner Brothers bought the play for $20,000. This was an enormous amount of money for a script, especially one from two unknown writers. It was the most anyone had ever paid for an unproduced play at the time. The decision caught attention in Hollywood, with many wondering if it was worth it. But the timing was perfect. Warner Brothers was known for making socially important films, and with America now in the war, they saw an opportunity to make a movie that mattered. Even though the studio spent a lot on the script, they didn't expect much from the movie. For Warner Brothers, it was just another project in a busy schedule. Humphrey Bogart, who played Rick, didn't think it was special either. It was one of 4 films he made in 1942, and he didn't take it very seriously. Ingrid Bergman, who played Ilsa, only accepted the role because she couldn't get a part in another movie she wanted. When filming Casablanca started on May 25, 1942, the script wasn't even finished. Only the first part was ready. Writers were scrambling. Julius and Philip Epstein had finished their draft just 3 days before shooting, and Howard Koch was still working on his version 2 weeks into filming. Scenes were being written at night and rushed to the set in the morning. Things were so chaotic that by August, the script had grown too long, 126 pages. The producer, Hal B. Wallace, demanded it be cut down. One scene, where Rick and Ilsa meet at the cafe, was rewritten 7 times in one day. This chaos also led to magic. Some of the film's best lines, like, "Here's looking at you, kid," weren't even in the script. Humphrey Bogart made that one up while filming. The famous final line, "Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship," wasn't added until later. Wallace thought of it after filming Wrapped and paid Bogart $50,000 to come back and record it. A fortune back then. The script changes confused everyone. Ingrid Bergman, who played Ilsa, often didn't know how to act in a scene. When she asked the director, Michael Curtis, what to do, he would shrug and say, "I don't know. We'll see." Even the ending wasn't decided. When they shot the airport scene, no one knew if Ilsa would leave with Rick or Victor Laszlo. They filmed 3 different endings. One where she stays with Rick, one where she goes with Laszlo, and one where Rick is killed. The crew voted on the ending, and the final decision came just before the movie premiered in November 1942. The confusion wasn't just for the big stars. S.Z. Sakal, who played Carl the waiter, was so lost he started nervously wiggling his eyes. Later, he joked he didn't even know if he was supposed to be a spy or just a clumsy waiter. Bergman, especially, was frustrated. She didn't know which man her character would choose, Rick or Laszlo. The writers told her to play it in between, which only added to her stress. One day, she came ready to shoot a love scene with Paul Henreid, Laszlo. But, at the last minute, they changed it into an argument with Bogart. She had to completely shift her emotions on the spot. Even her costumes reflected the uncertainty. For the airport scene, she had 2 outfits ready: a glamorous fur coat if Ilsa stayed with Rick, and a plain travel suit if she left with Laszlo. She didn't know which to wear until right before filming. She later joked that she spent more time worrying about the coat than the script. Bogart also had doubts. He wasn't sure about being a romantic lead. At 42, he thought he was too old and not handsome enough. "I don't know about this love stuff," he told producer Hal Wallace. Bogart was also nervous because he was known for playing gangsters, not lovers. During the first week of filming, he drank heavily to calm down, causing Curtis to pause production for 2 days. Bogart's height was another problem. At 5 feet 8 inches, he was shorter than Bergman, so he had to wear platform shoes or sit on cushions during certain scenes. Once, he tripped over his platform shoes during a serious moment, and the whole crew burst out laughing. Michael Curtis, the director, added to the chaos. His thick Hungarian accent caused constant misunderstandings. He once asked for a poodle on set. When someone brought him a dog, he yelled, "Not a dog, a poodle!" He meant puddle for a rain scene. Another time he told Bogart, "Make love to her with your hat on." Everyone was confused until he added, "You know, like an American." He also asked for more extras in one scene, shouting, "Bring in the empty people." No one knew what he meant until he explained he wanted background actors. Then, something happened that changed everything. In November 1942, the Allied forces invaded French North Africa, and suddenly the name Casablanca was in the news everywhere. Warner Brothers rushed to finish the film to take advantage of the attention. Filming, which started in May 1942, wrapped up in just 71 days by August. That was incredibly fast for a major movie. The rush led to some clever tricks. The famous airport scene at the end wasn't shot at a real airport. It was filmed on a small sound stage. The crew used a wooden model of a plane and hired little people as extras to make the plane look bigger. They added heavy fog to hide the fake setup, which ended up making the scene look moody and iconic. However, everything was not going in the favor of production team. Joseph Breen, who was in charge of Hollywood's production code, was extremely strict about moral standards in films. He had major problems with Casablanca and sent Warner Brothers a memo on December 3, 1941, listing 13 things he wanted changed. He was especially upset about anything related to sexual content or profanity. One of his first demands was to remove all hints that Rick's cafe had a brothel upstairs. He also insisted on changing Rick's line, "What in hell are you doing here?" to just, "What are you doing here?" Breen even found the word broad too offensive and had it cut from the script. He didn't stop there. Breen focused on small moments, like a scene where Captain Renault adjusts his tie before meeting a female visa applicant. Originally, Renault said, "Send her in and turn on the light in my bedroom." Breen forced them to rewrite it as just "send her in." Even Ingrid Bergman's costumes were a problem for him. He made sure her dresses showed less cleavage, saying women's bodies should be fully covered at all times. All these changes removed the sexual undertones that had been part of the original story. Rick and Ilsa's past relationship in Paris also had to be changed. In the original script, it was clear they had an affair. One scene even showed them in bed together. Breen said this was unacceptable and ordered all references to premarital affair removed. On January 6, 1942, he sent another memo saying there should be no suggestion of intimacy between Rick and Ilsa. As a result, flashback scenes were rewritten to rely on hints and subtle clues. For example, Rick's line, "I remember every detail. The Germans wore gray, you wore blue," became a coded reference to their romantic past. These changes forced the actors to show their feelings through glances, tone, and subtext. The result was a sense of tension and longing between Rick and Ilsa, making their story more emotional and impactful. While the censorship removed explicit content, it unintentionally made their chemistry even stronger. Captain Renault's character was also rewritten. Originally, he was openly corrupt and used his power to exploit desperate women, trading exit visas for sexual favors. In one deleted scene, Renault said to a young woman, "We have everything here from wines to exit visas," clearly hinting at his intentions. Breen found this unacceptable and sent a memo saying there could be no suggestion that Renault forced women into such situations. This led to major changes in the script. For instance, a line where Renault said, "If there are any attractive women, send them to my office," was removed completely. The dialogue in Casablanca also went through many changes to meet Breen's strict rules. For example, the word "damn" was not allowed, which almost changed Rick's famous line, "Here's looking at you, kid," to "Here's good luck to you, kid." After a lot of back and forth, the original line stayed. Even small phrases faced scrutiny. The word "lousy" in the line, "You're becoming a lousy bartender," was changed to "You're becoming a very poor bartender." Another change was Sam's line, "Boss, ain't you going to bed?" which was rewritten to "Boss, ain't you going home?" to avoid any sexual implication. These edits, while frustrating for the filmmakers, had an interesting side effect. The restrictions forced the writers and actors to rely on implication and subtlety, which gave the film more depth. But these were not the only edits. Just 2 days before Casablanca premiered, something surprising happened. The director, Michael Curtiz, decided to cut an important scene. This scene showed Rick Blaine, played by Humphrey Bogart, visiting Victor Laszlo, played by Paul Henreid, in jail. It wasn't a small decision. The scene had cost $18,000 to film, which was a lot of money at the time, and it was over 2 minutes.